Hey everybody, it's time for another episode of the Gracious Guest Show, and I'm your humble host, Mike Creavey. This is the show where we talk about all things wonder and awe, and how God really is at work in even very unexpected places sometimes, day-to-day life, places we don't necessarily expect to encounter Him. But that's just how God is. God made the universe basically to communicate Him in all sorts of different ways, and whether that's in literature, nature, human interaction, movies, day-to-day experiences, travel, food, you name it. God is trying to encounter with us, or draw us to an encounter with Him, I should say, everywhere and everywhere we go, every single day. So if you've never checked out the website, please do that. It's thegraciousguest.org. Thegraciousguest.org. And right on that splash page when you get there, you can find everything, the YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to there. Please do. Please like and subscribe anything on there that you think is worth liking and subscribing to, namely the channel itself. And spread it far and wide. I mean, maybe there's something on there that you may not particularly be that interested in, but you know someone who might be. That's great too. The same thing with the podcast. Most of the time what I do is I just do these shows now through YouTube primarily, and then I pull the audio off that and release it as a standalone podcast as well, because we all like to consume media in different ways. I like both YouTube videos and podcasts myself. So podcasts can be a little more portable. You know, you can take them with you anywhere. But what have you, whatever you're interested in, I think there's something for you on The Gracious Guest. So without further ado, I want to jump straight into this interview. This interview today with a now friend of mine, I'm happy to say, Anna Camacho. And Anna is perhaps best known, and I'm trying to help her become more best known, for being the creator of Corda Candles. And if you're like me, you like candles. As you can see, I have a lot behind me here. I'm going to get into that with her in this interview as well. But I was totally fanboying. I'm not gonna lie, because my wife and I discovered Corda Candles maybe about a year or so ago. Maybe a little earlier than that. But Corda is, and it means hearts up. It comes from the old Latin translation of the Catholic liturgy. You know, we say in the sort of the Novus Ordo Mass now, you know, in English, we right before the Eucharist, you know, we lift up your hearts, we lift them up to the Lord. The Latin there's more of I think a kind of a cool, profound reality. You know, this command, hearts up, and you'll see it on the sign actually behind Anna here. And so the really cool story of how she got into candle making. These are candles that are inspired by particular saints, and their stories. Candles that can also help us kind of just focus in our prayer on particular biblical themes and that kind of thing. My wife and I, Christine and I, love these things. We have so many of them. I just have 6 completely used up ones here, 1 or 2 that's still light, but we burn them all the way to the end. I've got this other one going back here behind me, as you can see, and they are just outstanding. They're not your typical candle. She is going to get into some of the details here that are very fascinating, I found, and I think you will too, about just kind of candles and how a lot of the, if you're like my wife and like some of our other relatives, certain candles just don't, you know, they can give you a reaction, and there's reasons for that. I had no idea that Anna shares with us. Hers don't do that. They're awesome. They're outstanding. They burn longer than regular candles. They smell fantastic, and they really help us in just our kind of prayer time too. So can't speak highly enough of it. I tell people all the time, go to cordacandles.com. The link is down here below in the description. You'll definitely want to check that out for sure, and send other people you know to Anna's wonderful website as well. So without further ado, here is my interview with Anna Camacho of Corda Candles. All right, and Anna Camacho, you are officially now a gracious guest on the Gracious Guest Show. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm really glad to be here, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't know if you can see, I didn't tell you this ahead of time because I wanted to bring it up now, but this is becoming kind of like a little Corda Candles shrine in here. So if you can see, there's 6 basically empty ones that the wicks won't even light anymore over there. And then I've got Sweeter Than Wine is going over here on the wall. So in this cool little Hobby Lobby thing I found, which seems like a nice little area for it, you know?
Oh,
So
that's so great.
So we are fans, and we're going to get into the story a little bit more here in a bit. But just wanted to start off asking you a little bit about your background, kind of, where you grew up, anything you want to just sort of share about your general kind of background.
Yeah, no, I tried to kind of dive into that with you because I never ever thought I would be a candle maker. So it's funny, Corda started a little over 2 years ago. The first product launched about 20 months or so ago. So it's just so neat that this is like my day job is doing things that honor the faith and that help me and others like deepen their faith and draw closer to God and the saints in a really concrete way. It all started because I was actually in jobs that I was really grateful for that, paid the bills and I worked with good people. But they had me in front of a screen all
Mm,
day, every day, which is tough for lots of reasons. But then also there wasn't any creativity, especially in my job that I was in for about 4 years. I was working for this amazing Catholic organization that was started by Joseph Ratzinger and
is
honors
that
every past.
Communio?
Communio, yeah.
'Cause I have some up there too, and they're funny. I forgot to mention that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, amazing organization, amazing
Yeah.
people, but it just wasn't the right fit for me. There just wasn't
Sure.
any creativity at all. So for years, I just prayed to Saint Joseph because he's just always been a good father and someone to turn to, but he's also the patron saint of those who are unemployed or seeking a different job. He's the patron
Right.
saint of workers. And so just praying to him like year after year after year after year, to, if there's any way that I could have work that was creative and that would let me actually work with my hands. So I wasn't, in front of a screen all of the time.
Right.
I was ready, like whenever he was ready, and just being really faithful in that intercession, and but also trying to be really present, like where I was, and kind of walk that line of hoping for something else, but still, needing to show up where you were.
Right.
So that took about 6 years actually, and actually tried a lot of different things in that time. I was going to be a
That's what I was going
baker.
to ask you, because you said
Yeah.
about not thinking about being a candle maker. I wondered, was there
Yeah,
was there something you were hoping that prayer would manifest as, as far as creativity and
yeah. I mean, I didn't have anything particularly in mind, but it is you kind of go through life and different things or ideas come up. So I sort of kicked around for a while, like becoming a baker,
Mhm.
becoming a floral, like flower grower, having a flower farm.
Yeah.
I was gonna sew Saint doll, like design like really great Saint like
Yeah.
floppy toys. Just thing after thing, and my husband was such a champ and like so supportive, but it never really clicked for either of us.
Yeah.
There was kind of that initial excitement, and then it was like, well, this, maybe financially this isn't feasible.
Hmm.
There's too much labor, like the finished product would be so expensive, or just different reasons. And then we were at mass one day, and it was after communion, and so there's that time for prayer and reflection, and my husband and I would sit on the St. Joseph side in the front pew, so his statue is just right there, and I am just praying to him again. But at that moment it was just sort of meditating on him and his life, and just being really grateful for his example, for how he cared for Mary and Jesus and used the work of his hands to provide for them, and
Yeah.
he was so faithful, in what he did. So just kind of, thinking about all these lines, just kind of meditating, and all of a sudden this idea to do scented candles connected to saints in the faith just came. And I would say like in the exact same moment, it was like, oh, you should make these candles, and like here's 4 scent recipes, like so to speak. Like here's 4 saints and what their 4 candles will smell like. and I've never ever like thought about this before
So
in my life. It
that
was
like
just
that just popped in there.
just right there.
That's right. Which four were they? I'm just curious.
It's Joseph and
Yeah.
Peter Giorgio, Kateri, she's my confirmation saint, so I have a
Oh,
really
okay.
great love for her, and Damien and Malachi. And those four
Okay.
are actually the what I would say like are the patrons of
Okay.
Corda.
I don't know that
So
I don't think we've done the Kateri and the Damien de Molokai one yet. I'll have to check those out. But the
yeah,
other two we have, yeah.
yeah, those are in development. So I'm hoping in early or like mid 2022 that those will,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Oh,
So
okay. Oh, so you haven't released those ones yet, but you've been working on. Oh, cool. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
so that kind of just started me down this rabbit hole, and I told you like before, when I'd have one of these ideas and I share it with my husband Michael, he would be like, go for it. But like it didn't really feel right to either of us.
Right.
It kind of felt forced. Whereas this time I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to tell him because like I know I just like this just came to me, but like I love it so much. And if he says no, like it's gonna hurt,
Yeah.
And so I waited like an hour and then I was like, all right, I just gotta tell you, I know this is crazy, but St. Joseph gave me this idea. And for the first time he was like, Anna, you have to do this. Like
Oh,
this,
wow.
like whatever you need, let's get started. Like go for it. And I was like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
you don't understand. Like I've never done this. I have no idea. Like, what about like the finances and like, will it be viable? And he was like, just do it. Like, this is
Yeah.
it. And I was like, yeah, I know. Like, let's go. So, it took about 7 months because the ingredients are super, super important to me.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, I actually do like my
Because
own.
it's your own right. I was going to ask
Mhm.
you about that a little bit. If you could kind of how did you go from no background in candle making to this your own kind of proprietary mix here and before you answer that, let me just say real quick that my wife, like I love candles. I've always been this candle guy, and some people
Yeah,
tease me about it. I'm like, I
yeah.
just love them. And for prayer and stuff too, like the natural, the light, this very just most ancient sort of symbol. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's just you can't quite duplicate it, of course, with an electric candle or anything. It's like there's something about it, and it always helps focus me and the sense and everything. But my wife always had issues with just the kind of store-bought stuff off the shelf and reactions to it, allergic reactions. So we started doing soy, and
Mhm.
that those have been pretty good, but it's just nothing like these. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the show. It's just it's a totally different kind of experience, and she's had no reactions, any allergic stuff anyway. So how'd that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I actually there was a period in my life where I said I just can't use candles anymore.
Mm,
And I didn't know anything about the different ingredients at the time. It
yeah.
was just when candles were burning, I would get headaches or not feel good, or there
Right.
would be like soot on the wall or whatever. And so I was just like, well, I guess we just won't use these. And but then like we kind of my husband and I went through this period where we started learning about like how food is like grown or
Hmm.
like how animals are raised and like trying to learn more about where our food comes from, and then that
Yeah.
just opens the door to like, well, how is anything made, and are
Right.
people treated well and paid a just wage and all these
Yeah.
things. And so when it came to the candles, um, I actually went in thinking, oh, I'm absolutely going to use like 100% soy wax. It's grown domestically. It's a renewable resource. It's all natural, all this good stuff.
Yeah.
And really started down that path. And what I learned is not to get too technical here, but what the candles that most people are familiar with are created with paraffin wax, and that
Hmm.
is actually a byproduct of crude oil.
Right.
When that's turned into gasoline, into petroleum, the stuff that's in the bottom of the barrel gets chemicals get added to it. It goes through this
Yeah.
process, and then they turn it into this wax that then we burn in our homes and breathe in. Um,
Delightful.
Yeah. So, and that's
When you
why I
say it
love
like that.
yeah.
No.
And
Oh
it's
my.
interesting. It's so interesting how like again, like maybe this is going off on a tangent, but like people are starting to greenwash paraffin
Hmm.
because kind of across the board, like in the secular world as well, there is a movement toward be more mindful of where things are coming from, what kind
Hmm.
of things are we touching and eating and smelling. And so now um, candles that are made with this paraffin wax, you'll people will actually say one, it's all natural, and two, that it is mineral based, which maybe it was a long, long time ago, but it's gone through so much um, change, like so much processing, so many chemicals and like really strong chemicals have been added to it. But they say, well, it came from the earth,
Right.
so long ago, and so it's a natural product. And there's food grade paraffin. Like when you get the apples at the store that are bright
Yeah.
and shiny, that's actually paraffin wax on there that we're eating. I mean, it's just crazy, like all the things. So if you want to edit
Yeah.
it out, go right ahead. But what I learned, and all of this is just to say, what I learned about soy wax is it is far better for so many reasons than paraffin
Yeah.
wax. For all the reasons that I mentioned, what made me very uncomfortable about simply using soy wax for the candles is it actually goes through the same process with the same chemicals to make soy oil into wax that
Oh, okay.
paraffin does. They use these
So
really
different kind of origin with it, but it
yeah,
basically goes through the same sort of, right. Okay. Huh.
the same process.
Yeah.
And with the soy that is grown here in the US, again, not to get too political with things, but
Yeah.
according to the USDA, more than 90% of domestic grown soy has been genetically modified.
Hmm.
And if you really dig into the wax manufacturer, there's something called an MSDS sheet, which is like their safety information.
Hmm.
And they say that the what was genetically modified has been removed from the kernel before it gets pressed into oil, but that plant was still changed. It's
Right.
not
Right.
its pure natural form.
Sure.
So that made me uncomfortable. And one last thing, soy is one of
Sure.
the most heavily pesticided
Gotcha.
crops in the US, which isn't great if you're taking that product and then making it into something that you burn and smell, but
Right.
also just the human, like people have to apply that, and they're exposed to those chemicals. And
Yeah.
I think we're seeing, especially like in legal arenas, like we're seeing the impact of that
Yeah.
on people's lives.
Well,
So
that's like I was
all
saying
of
about my wife hasn't been
the
affected. Well, it's not super like serious or obvious. I mean, like she doesn't like it and we'll blow something out. But I know with my mother-in-law who has more like respiratory issues and stuff like that, like she's like nothing scented, like no candles,
yeah,
no
yeah.
Glade plugins, like none of that stuff. So that
Mhm.
was something where, it's don't get me wrong, I'm not counting myself as some sort of like, first century Christian martyr for all the suffering I have to go through. But there was a little bit of like, but I like these things. And I was like,
Yeah.
I want, and
Well,
so that, yeah, yeah.
no, I mean,
Alternatives.
this is a fascinating thing because a lot of people think, oh, I can't do candles
Yeah.
because of the fragrance, but it really does start with the wax. And that's
Right.
what makes up the bulk of what you're breathing in. Because when you
Sure.
burn a candle, it gets combusted into the air and that's when you breathe it in.
Yeah.
And so the wax matters, the wick matters.
Hmm.
We don't have to go into all that, but even if you're using an all natural beeswax candle or soy candle or other, there's lots of palm wax or coconut wax, all these things, your wick, depending on if your candle maker is paying attention, that can still be primed with paraffin wax, which
Okay.
means as soon as you light that wick, there's it's a trace
Right.
amount, but like
Right.
they sneak it in like all these ways. And then of course you've got the fragrance, which um can be made with good ingredients,
Right.
or can have lots of chemicals in it too. And so
Right.
you have to be really like, so it could be the wax, it could be the wick, it could be the
Mm.
fragrance, it could be all three. And so that was what really took me the 7 months of how do we create something that is just as healthy as we can
Yeah.
possibly make it. And also because I do the saint scents are like
Hmm.
custom to each saint. And so just playing with that and
Yeah.
working with the different oils and proportions and trying to find something that really like honors the person that it's inspired by. And
Sure.
so that definitely took a long time. And then there's packaging I've never designed packaging before. I've never like written all the website content and done photography. So like, I mean, we just built everything from the ground up in about
Right.
7 months.
That's
But
I didn't know it was that fast of a turnaround. That's pretty
yeah.
awesome. I
Well, it's great because I was still working for Camino at the same time.
Right.
So this was like
Oh,
mornings,
right.
nights, and weekends
Oh,
that I would
wow.
do this. So it was
And and
awesome. So,
and so
yeah.
you settled on it. So it's a coconut, is it coconut wax or coconut oil, or what it exactly is the sort of base for it? It's
Yeah,
coconut
it's
something. It's like I want to
almost
say
almost entirely coconut wax. And
okay.
coconut wax, oh my gosh, I could spend like 2 hours just on coconut wax. But um it is so great because if you think about an open coconut and there's all that white meat in
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
they cold press that, which is the same way that you make like essential oils or other
Right.
things.
Yeah.
So it's just cold pressed, and then it goes through a hydrogenation process to make it into wax. But what they use is you do have to add like a chemical to it to change
Right.
the consistency, but it's a very different one that's used for soy wax or paraffin wax.
Sure.
And what's really, really great about the coconut palm, where you get coconuts from, is in Thailand and other places where it's grown, the entire tree is used. So the bark, the
Yeah.
wood of the trunk, the palms, of course, are used. I actually met someone recently whose dad had a coconut palm plantation in Thailand. And she
Huh.
was telling me about like all of the cultural and religious uses and how it's like such a central part of who they are, like as a
Yeah.
people. And like as a coming of age thing, like girls will like bathe in coconut milk. Like it's just this, it has this incredible like um like they reverence it
Yeah.
so much because it's so life-giving. I mean, they build their houses with it. They like it's
It's one of
very
those things, like it's not, there's some things in God's creation I don't understand what he was thinking, and I want to be respectful, so I don't usually bring it up. But sometimes in prayer I'm like, the scorpion, like, what,
yep.
why, like, but
Yep.
then I'm like, okay, but then I feel like he'll direct me to, well, look at the coconut tree. It's like, don't distract. No, it's like,
Yeah.
but no, it is something that's just like, it really is. There's so much that's done with it. It is incredible. And I know we're my wife and I, we're basically, between the two of us, of, like, uh like Italian, Irish, German. Like, we don't have any Thai ancestry whatsoever
Yeah.
anywhere,
Yeah.
but we love Thai food, and we actually cook quite a bit of it ourselves. And of course, like coconuts, like, okay, where's the coconut in this thing? It's always
For
front and
sure.
center in there somewhere. So yeah, that's
Totally.
pretty awesome. And it
And
does, and I think I don't want to, like, I might be wrong, you correct me here, but you have the percentage then, I think, on your website, or a comparison of how much longer it burns for a comparable size for a candle, and that really seems to us pretty obvious, because they do seem to last longer than candles of the same size from something else.
And it's because, I mean, you think about coconut oil and how it is actually liquid at room temperature because it's so soft.
Right.
And so the coconut wax is the same, which makes it
Yeah.
easy to work with. But that means that the candle burns a lot slower because your flame doesn't have to be as hot to
Right.
make it. So it gets burned off, much slower than a bigger candle. So they'll last you a good long time. So they look small. I say they're small but mighty.
They
Because
are.
they'll last you a long time,
Yeah.
and I really like that too. That it's something, yeah, that you can just enjoy for a long
Yeah.
time. You don't have to like replace, over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you too, the kind of next thing I had down here was that Saints and Scents, the
Mhm.
title we're making this here. And maybe if you could just kind of, if there's some of your favorites, I'm sure they're all kind of your babies in a sense here of these inspirations. But I'm just really curious about like, because we've been saying how like just every single one just seems somehow perfect, for that particular saint, or really evokes a particular feeling or an experience or just something about that saint. I'm just wondering if there's maybe just a few you want to share in particular that really, that might jump out at you.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the Sweeter Than One that you've
Yeah,
got burning
let's
in the
go. That's the one
background.
going right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one that just, like, I knew kind of where I wanted to start with it. Actually, it's inspired by the Song of Songs, which
Mhm.
I, like, was like, "I don't get this book, like, what," what how am I supposed to understand this? And then the more that I read about it and studied it, and it just became this beautiful thing. There's so many saints too who love the Song of Songs. Saint Therese of Lisieux, John of was it no, it was Thomas Aquinas was actually like on his deathbed, and he was like, please just read me the song.
Yeah.
It's if the
Yeah.
saints loved it, it's there's something special there.
Sure.
And it's so rich, right, with all of
Right.
the imagery. I mean, I think I made a list and there was like over 40 different kind of ingredients or scents that I could use.
Oh, okay. Just from the book
Just
itself.
yeah, just
Yeah, that's a good
and the
point.
book
Yeah.
is it's not that long either.
Right. No.
But
Yeah.
trying to figure out like what would smell right together, but also like what would sort of represent the book.
Yeah.
And with that one, so the scents of the candle are cedar and pomegranate and apple. And cedar is
Yeah.
really special for the book because in the Song of Songs, you have the bridegroom and you have the bride. And the imagery of that is it's a human bride and bridegroom. It's the individual soul and God, or the soul and Christ,
Right.
or it's Israel and God, or the church and God. So there's all these different like meanings kind of woven into it, and cedar is used throughout the book for the house of God, for temple. It
Right.
signifies that. So I knew that that was really important, and
And that
often
was,
the
I
bride.
think it was King Hiram, I think of well, Lebanon, where they brought the cedar
Mhm.
down from there to help build the temple, in
Yeah.
Jerusalem. So that was, you can imagine just being at the temple too and getting that, some of that cedar, I'm sure would come through. And I
Yeah, I
love
mean,
it. Yeah.
it's incredible because the whole thing, and then like the
Right.
rafters and the pillars and all this stuff was
Yeah.
made out of cedar. And God was like, "This is what I want for my house." So
Right. Yeah.
It's super important. And the apple is actually connected in the song with the bridegroom. He sleeps under it, or there's other like language in it later where the apple will be represented by him. So that seemed
Right.
important to have in there. And then pomegranate represents the bride, but it's also tied to the temple. There's pomegranates carved into the
Right.
temple itself, and the priests actually in their priestly garments they have bells and they have pomegranates. And
Right. I
part
forgot
of
about
that,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it's because the pomegranate for the Jewish people represented Eden and this
Mm.
return to sort of original innocence and communion with God. And so the pomegranate has this really beautiful meaning. And thankfully, they all smelled really, really great together.
Yeah.
So all of that is kind of a lengthy explanation, but that's like
Yeah.
how, just kind of like a snippet of how much research goes into it, or like
Oh,
even
yeah.
like deep diving into their life and their writings and writings that other people have done about
Sure.
them, and novenas and the
I was going to
liturgy.
ask about that, like how much of that is like prayer. I'm sure it's a combination that, prayer and sort of inspiration, and then also that the research of it, because obviously you don't just, I'm not knocking prayer of course at all, but it's not like it's just because I think a lot of people, myself included, you just see scents on a candle and it's just like, oh yeah, cool, that's and like I don't think most of us, the laymen so to speak, don't necessarily really think about how do you pair them up? Like, how do you know it smells good together? Because I like these things, but when you put them together, they may not work or they might be too much. And I think we've all smelled candles that are like Oh, or one of my favorites, the Mystic Bliss one with eucalyptus. I've had eucalyptus done real wrong, where it's just like
Mhm.
it's like Vicks vapor rub. It just smells like
Yeah.
medicine,
Yep.
and it's not. That's not an appealing sort of
Yeah.
encounter with that. So yeah, I'm glad you brought some of that up as far as just the research of it, because I'm sure there's a lot of trial and error too.
Oh,
I don't
there
know
has
if you have any
to
fun stories about that. No.
like the Kateri and the Damien one are still in progress because they just haven't worked. Like you start with an idea, but then you actually get it in wax and these different scent combinations together, and you're like,
Right,
well, this needs to be, this is too floral, or that's too like heavy, it needs something to lighten it up, or it's
right,
too sweet, like how do we balance it, and but still like um connected to the same, right? Like
right.
it's not simply like how do we get a candle that smells nice and interesting, but how do we do that in a way that reflects it? So the list of saints who can't like haven't been translated into scent yet is way longer than
I was wondering. I feel like you've probably got a lot more up your sleeve than we'd probably think initially.
yeah, but it's
Oh,
so fun. I love it a lot. And other people will email me too and they'll say, have you thought about this thing? And here's the story about them. Like, can that be helpful? And it's a lot of people have said, gosh, I never thought about like connecting scent with a
yeah,
saint before, but now that other people like, we're thinking with our senses, and because we're incarnate beings, our God is an incarnate God, like um I think there is this really great connection. And I mean, the reason that we have sacraments and the sacramentals is we need that. Like we need things that we can
yeah,
see and smell and touch and taste. And I mean, God is became under the Eucharist like bread and wine. It's
right,
not this ethereal thing. And
right.
so I think now that people are like, oh yeah, this is just one more way to live out my faith or to be connected with the saints. It's so cool to get like ideas and
Yeah.
suggestions from other people too. So
I think, and I'm guilty as charged. I'm one of those who sent you, I think, a LinkedIn message early on, just like, "Have
yeah,
you done that?"
well,
And then I think some of the stuff that there was one I forget. I'd have to go back and look, but then I discovered that you had the Thomas Aquinas one. I think, which I haven't gotten that one yet, but there's like two things in that I was like, yes, that's. I was like, I need something for the studious kind of. But I think, yeah, one of my other favorites is I think it was the very first one I got, because my wife and I were picking ones out, and she
mhm.
loves well, the I'm forgetting the name of it now. Roses in Winter, the Our Lady of Guadalupe one, she really loved. And then my first one was um, the Blessed Pier Giorgio Alpine Ascent one. And
Mhm.
there's just something, that one is I don't remember if it's three things, but is it pipe smoke and mountain air, I think, or
Uh-huh.
something like that. And I don't know how, like, the only way to get someone watching this or listening to this right now, because I'm doing the podcast version of it as well,
Mhm.
to really get this, I think, is to just drive traffic towards cordacandles.com. First of all, I'll give the links out and stuff in the show description, but
Yeah.
you got to try it,
Mhm.
and it's just like you were saying. I think the incarnational reality of all of this, that it's
Mhm.
we're not. I just saw, it's my least favorite, one of my least favorite, there's so many bumper stickers, the other day in the parking lot. And apologies to anyone in the audience who might have this bumper sticker, or who knows someone who does. I have an issue with theology behind it, is what I'm saying. The one that says that we are not, what does it say? We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, or something like that. It's a very kind of
Huh.
Eastern kind of, or even dualistic, like our true self is
Mhm.
when we're freed from this mortal coil kind of thing. And even as much as I love Star Wars, you can see some of my wall over here. Um, Master Yoda's wrong when he,
Yep.
kind of knocks the crude matter. And that's the whole thing, like the beauty of Christianity, of God revealing that, it's we're not by mistake this way, that we have noses and ears and eyes, and taste buds for a reason, that these are things he gave us as really, just superfluous. He didn't have to do any of it. These extra ways of having these different encounters with something about him,
Mhm.
and so that's just something, for what it's worth. I thought I'd just mention that to you, because I think that's, you know, for us, it's been more about than just, candles that we like that smell nice. It's so beautiful that to be able to find this really, I would call it a ministry. I don't know if you call it a ministry, but this ministry of yours, in a sense, of being able to provide, these candles that can augment that prayer and just kind of reflection. And so I just wanted to mention that. I just think that's important to get out there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that a lot. And I think, yeah, I mean, when we look to the church and her wisdom, and we see, I mean, you cannot receive a sacrament unless you have both the word and the matter. If you just have words or prayer, like it doesn't work. Like it
Right.
literally, like, you have not received a sacrament. Like, you must have the matter. And I think that's one of the things as Catholics that is just such a gift that the church insists on that. And of course that comes from Christ himself. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, what are, like, that means that the things that we have around us, that we see and that we use, like, they do have a significance. And you can, of course, like, go overboard with that. You can either say, like, oh, it doesn't matter at all, or it matters, too much. There's extremes on both sides. But yeah, when you look around your space, or use your senses, are those things drawing you closer to God, or at least, like, reminding you of his presence, or not? And one of the things with the candles is that I didn't want it to be kind of like, here's another, like, when we think of Saint Candles, this image probably comes into our head of the really tall votive with the kind of overly
Right.
pious art. And there isn't, to me, there wasn't anything about those candles that made them Catholic candles, except they, like, put a picture on it.
Yeah, and
um
there's even, so I don't know if you, there's even some
yeah.
places where you can get there's like a whole, I've seen a whole like aisle at Walmart of them, and
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, it, I don't know exactly how I feel about that, but there's a little bit of like, this kind of feels like it's taking away the sanctity, and it's a little bit more of a, just kind of maybe a like a cultural thing, or an interest, like an artsy kind of thing, not in a bad way, but just, is this actually a reflection of devotion and piety, or a commercialized kind of thing? So yeah, that's a challenge, I think, too, with it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's even, it's crazy, the stuff that you can kind of find online. Like, now there's, like, celebrity Saint candles where they take, like, the Sacred Heart of Jesus image and they
Yeah,
put someone's like, I mean, it's just, it's I can't really talk about it or I get too
we
angry.
had we had a kid at our
Um,
Catholic school with a backpack like that with Danny DeVito on it, and then all of a sudden I noticed one day they didn't have it anymore, and kind of think, I think somebody said something.
yeah, yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, people just don't realize. I mean, you hope that they just don't realize,
Yeah.
what's going on. But yeah, so how to sort of, like, use candles, like, there wasn't, when I started, like, and I searched high and low, like, I couldn't find any candle, even ones that were, like, quote unquote Catholic candles,
Yeah.
where the scent of the candle, so actually, like, using the candle, not just looking at it, but, like, actually
Right.
burning the candle, that was what made it Catholic
Right.
or connected to the faith. And so that was really what drove me. So the packaging is,
Yeah.
super minimal. Like, you can have it next to your crucifix, or you can have it on your desk at work, and it fits
Yeah.
both places, because I really wanted the scent to be what engages
Right.
you, as opposed to, like, well, here's another, like, Catholic thing. And also, I'm not an artist, so I was like, well, I can't, I can't, like, do this
You
beautiful imagery.
I would push back a little bit. I think you
Yeah,
are an artist, but just a different kind of one. Let me grab this too quick, because I don't know
yeah.
if people watching, and again, there are some people listening. One of my biggest pet peeves, people who've heard or seen this before,
Mhm.
is when because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and if it's a podcast that's coming from a video, I hate when like most of it's, look at this, look at that, check this out. And like, I can't see it. But for those who are watching, you can see just well, now that I'm holding it, because it's what are these 6 ounces, I think, right, for the main ones, and and yeah, and then like you said, I mean, I have it up on my shelf up here behind the camera usually, and yeah, it doesn't. It's not like a giant, like 2 foot votive thing, which can be cool, but like you said, I love the way you put that. That it's like the candles, like it's almost like it's not really about the candle, usually, and I can vouch for this that when we I don't even remember how we came across Corda, but like now we tell like it's like we evangelize for you.
Oh,
We
thank you.
tell we tell people like, oh, you're looking for candles. Let me tell you about a place, because I was sort of surprised looking around that there's not really anything quite like it out there, from what we found. So yeah, I can back up what you were just saying there for sure.
Well, I'd love to kind of circle back to what you said earlier about how you just are drawn to candles or really enjoy using them with the light and everything. I mean, that's just so Catholic, right? Again, like with the
Yeah,
sacramentals or the incarnational thing, but I mean, Jesus is the one who said, I'm the light of the world, and he told us we are the light of the world, and we use candles for everything. I mean,
yeah,
we signify Jesus's presence in the Eucharist with light, with a
right.
candle.
And the
And
Paschal
yeah,
candle, every year, and
yeah. Oh
and
my gosh,
and
like
and we've done that.
fire.
I've done that as a youth minister. I didn't make this up. Someone else did, and I just borrowed it because I think that's what most good youth ministers do. But we did. You probably have seen it before too. But it's so powerful, and it's like God built it into the reality of this thing we call fire. This elemental, fundamental aspect of human life forever. Where you go into the dark sanctuary, just like you do at Easter Vigil, and you have one candle, and then you give it to someone, or you give it away to somebody else, and it
Mhm.
doesn't diminish the original one at all. And now
Right.
you have twice as much light. Then you light someone else. Now you have 3 times as much light. And just the visual, the sacramental, like lowercase s,
Mhm.
sacramental power of that, that God built into the reality of fire itself,
Mhm.
that you gain by giving away.
Yep.
I mean, like that's the gospel in a nutshell. I'm sitting here looking at it as it's burning while I'm reading the sacred page. You just don't
Yeah.
get that from LED lights, as
Right.
great as they are.
Right. And the fact that it is alive, and I mean, there's so much theology actually, like
Yeah,
that the wax, by like letting itself be consumed, gives light and life to something else. And speaking of the Easter Vigil, there's so much like beautiful prayer and liturgy there about Christ and the candle and the purity of the wax and the bees who made it. And there's just, yeah, I mean, it's there's nothing coincidental, right? Of like why does light have such significance, or why does like a living thing have such
yeah,
significance, like you're saying? And it's just incredible to kind of like unpack that. It's very cool.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, because I'm afraid what'll probably happen is we'll just go forever,
Keep
because
going.
I'm sure there's like 50 more. So I'll tell you what. Let me just ask you here, just to kind of um, um, as far as just kind of wrapping up a little bit. I'm just curious, like kind of what's next for Corda Candles. Just kind of the road ahead. Any big plans you have, or um,
Mm.
I don't know, whatever you want to share. Future dreams.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, it's I always knew that Corda would start with candles. Obviously that's where we started, but had something in me that was like, well, that's not all we're gonna do. So there is something coming later this fall that will you can use it with the candles or you can use it by itself. So we'll
Oh,
be announcing that in May a couple months. So I'm just
I might
gonna
have
keep
to bring
that
you
a
back on for that one, because I
oh,
can't
there
I
you
can't
go.
like I want to ask you what, and I know you can't tell me, so that's fine.
I
No.
can't, but there's actually another craftsman or artisan who is working with me on that. So yeah,
Oh,
I'm sure
cool.
we both love to talk about that. But then there's also just great new scents that are coming. I mean, there are a lot that haven't really into scent yet, but then there's some new ones. So we're coming out with a like signature scent that's called Hearts Up.
Hmm.
That's just like super joyful and
Nice.
Really beautiful. There's one for St. Francis of Assisi coming this fall, called Pavarello. And
Okay.
then I am hoping that I can finally get this Chrism inspired one. I've been working on it for about a year and a half, and it's
I
really
used like a chrism scented beard balm for like a year and a
yeah,
half, and it
yeah,
was so funny because everyone, like every Catholic I'd be around, was like, like they'd stop
yeah,
because it's like such a familiar. They're like, were you at a baptism? I'm like, no,
yeah,
it's just all in here. So I
yeah.
just go around with it. Oh man,
That's
yeah, that's a
awesome.
good one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, new scents, new products. But also just trying to like kind of navigate. I actually been on the phone most of today trying to source my jars and my wicks and my wax because the supply chain is still
Mm,
just really, really broken
yeah,
after all the stuff of last year and everybody's out of stock and I'm like, well, we're trying to get ready for Christmas and
hmm,
so I don't know. I mean, also just trying to be really open to what we will be able to do.
yeah.
I'm gonna be at peace with that. But yeah, I'm
We
excited.
gotta find some Catholic glass blowers. You know,
Oh, please.
just
Yeah,
get the whole thing. Yeah, like in the
yeah,
family. That would be great.
yeah. Send
Oh
it my
my,
way, please.
yeah. Oh.
That's
Well,
great.
Anna, thank you so much for coming on today. We're definitely gonna keep in touch and have you back on for sure because this is just exciting stuff, and I know I'm not alone, by any means in this. So, yeah,
Well, I'm
I
excited
appreciate it.
too. Anytime I get the chance to talk about the candles, but also philosophy and theology, I am all in. So thanks
Oh
so much
yeah,
for the podcast. I've really been enjoying listening to it
yeah.
too. And
Oh good.
anytime if you want to go back to a severe mercy and
Oh
talk about that some more, let me know because that was a
yeah.
great episode that you had.
I
Mm.
appreciate that. That was all. I'm trying to think now. Professor, which one was it? It would have been Regis Martin. So sometimes confused with Ralph Martin, but different, of course, guys. But Dr. Regis Martin at Franciscan U, who was my eschatology professor and a sacraments professor, and I don't know how many degrees in literature he has too. He just drops literature references all the time. But that came highly recommended from him, and I finally got around to it, and it just that one hit me over the head in so many ways. That's powerful. But oh well, yeah, we'll definitely have you back for further conversations about all kinds of stuff, I think.
Sounds
So
great.
thank you
Yeah,
so much for coming on.
thanks for helping spread the word and all your support of the business too.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. And I actually had to, I emailed Anna shortly after we got off the interview because I literally went and blew that candle out and then I dumped candle wax all over myself. So like I'm right now covered in delightful the delightful aroma of the Song of Songs. So that's apple, cedarwood, and pomegranate. Is what I smell like right now. Hey, there's worse things I could smell like. This is awesome. So it doubles as a nice cologne, apparently too. If you dump the that proprietary coconut wax all over yourself. So anyway, thanks so much for tuning in today to the Gracious Guest Show. I am trying to do at least one guest interview per month. That's working out pretty well so far. And we will be having some great new shows coming up pretty soon. Again, go to the website, thegraciousguest.org. Your favorite podcast site. Give us a good review over there if you could. Like some videos on the YouTube page. Subscribe. Give us some good feedback. We really appreciate it. You can contact me directly through thegraciousguest.org. And until next time, you guys, don't forget to wonder and get yourself some Corda Candles. God bless you.